with the Answer Coalition. He is a member of their veteran and active duty affiliate March Forward. Bill is also known as a social documentary photographer. I did have the pleasure of running into Bill in Washington, D.C. this week at the 7th anniversary of the Iraqi invasion and occupation. And without further delay or discussion, I would like to welcome Bill, Larry, and Russ, and welcome all of you to the Empire, Power, and Propaganda Lecture Series. Thank you for being here.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Mickey and Project Censor for putting this on and inviting us. I just spent 2 weeks in Washington, D.C. working on the national demonstration, and I just thought it would be helpful before we sort of get into the discussion just to kind of flick through those. I want to say that I know that a lot of people are concerned about the numbers of people that are coming out, and I think it's important to realize that this is at a particular stage of the war, and there's a lot of historical comparisons that we probably need to look at. The really good thing about the demonstration was that we're starting to see a whole new layer of people who haven't been around. I mean, so much we have been like really, the peace groups and the religious groups and organizations like that, and now we're in a situation where, we're seeing a lot more students come in. There's a growing number of veterans that are involved, and so we're just going to flick through these kind of quickly. Is that your job? Okay. The good thing, the target that we used, of course, was the White House this time. So it was the first time that really it was like the emphasis of the demonstration was against the executive wing, against Obama. And there were a lot of people from military families who had, lost loved ones who came out. You can just keep kind of moving at a slow pace. The demonstration was about 8,000 to 10,000 people. We went to the north side up above Lafayette Park, and then we carried coffins to stop at various places. Like we stopped at Halliburton, where we had an effigy of Dick Cheney. It was a very spirited demonstration. In fact, it seemed much bigger than 10,000 people. This is Halliburton, where the demonstration stopped. And then, we piled up coffins with the different flags of the different countries, whose people had been, were suffering with a tremendous amount of loss of life. Then after that, we went to the, in the loop, we went to the mortgage bankers, to try to make the link about, as Mickey was saying, about, the cost of the war that's affecting the infrastructure of the U.S. And even more than that, like, it's $1.2 billion a day, every 2 days now, to finance the war. And this is, this is something that is unsustainable in the long term. I'm going to get into that, more into that in a second. Then we stopped at the Washington Post, which had really been such a cheerleader for the wars. Had been, it might as well just be a newspaper that comes out of the Pentagon. Then after that, we ended up going to the Veterans Administration, which has been so inadequate with the returning veterans, what they have to go through. There's a waiting list, something like 800,000 people on a waiting list trying to get treatment. And when these guys come back, they have to just sort of wrangle with the system. And for someone of the 350,000 who have PTSD, this is really, an untenable situation.
And a lot of veterans in Native. I just wanted that.
Now this is a very interesting sign, and this is like kind of a good thing about what's happening right now. You see this sign, it says, "President Obama, we love you, but we must tell you, your hands are getting bloody, stop it now." It's interesting because this is a black woman, of course, where he got 98% of the vote. And what we've gone through in the past year has been this honeymoon with Obama, and the amount of people who you know, who in the anti-war movement, who had just jumped on board with him, and who now are like starting to change, and you could see it. We would get some calls in the last week or so at the office where people would say, you know, why are you demonstrating? It's not his war. You know, so it's like some people who are questioning like what's happening, but others, you know, the glow is starting to, is really starting to come off. And, you know, so we, just to finish up on the slides, we ended up at the White House where we dumped, this is the Veterans Administration, where we dumped the majority of the coffins, right, and we were able to get through the police lines and put them right, just stack them right up in front of the White House, which was a good graphic. It wasn't picked up, you would have thought that would have been the photo that would have beamed across the world, and of course, independent media did pick it up, that shot right there. And then afterwards, some people got arrested because they were really furious with us for, you know, putting them up there. They didn't quite, it didn't seem like they knew, the Secret Service knew quite what to do with them. So anyway, here's some military families who had lost their loved ones. And some Iraq veterans got arrested. Cindy Sheehan got arrested. I think it was 8 or 9 people got arrested. So anyway, you know, the interesting thing about this period as we're going through, and you can't look at the anti-war movement as being, you know, something that started out with those large demonstrations we're used to and went in a singular line, you know, just getting bigger and bigger. Mass movements just don't go that way. They go through ebbs and flows, fluctuations, and that's what we're going through now. We're having to sort of fight off the Obama glow. And this is something that we're starting to see a change in. We wish the demonstrations were larger, but we look at it as a very positive step. I mean, one demonstration is not a movement, it's a step towards the next thing. And as an activist organization like we are, we're constantly trying to figure out ways to bring more people into the movement. You know, there's an interesting analogy in U.S. history, and that's in 1964, when Lyndon Johnson beat Goldwater. You know, the peace movement just jumped onto LBJ's bandwagon because everyone was afraid, deathly afraid of Goldwater, who was like, said, we're going to bomb, you know, Vietnam back to the Stone Age. We're going to, you know, he was going to just dismantle social programs. He said he was going to eliminate Social Security. And Lyndon Johnson was the liberal and said, we're not going to send our boys off to fight some war in Asia. You know, the war was just kind of like beginning to build up a little bit. And he had the advantage, and he wanted to expand social programs. And he had the luxury, because it was a relatively prosperous period, he had the luxury of being able to have what they call guns and butter. Pursue the war, but at the same time in the U.S. to be able to like expand social programs. Well, 2 years, of course, after Johnson's elected, and many in the peace movement say you can't demonstrate against them. It's wrong. Those would be the phone calls coming into the organizer's office. You can't do this because give them a chance. Give the Democrats a chance. How many times have we heard, give the Democrats a chance? And so this was something, and then 2 years later, there's 500,000 troops in Vietnam. So that was a particular period. Now, Obama does not have that luxury, and the reason is because of the economic crisis. He can't take care of the economic crisis in the U.S. while spending $1.2 billion on expanding the war, and they know that. And so that's the period we're in. Now, when Obama said we're going to expand the war, the thing that he did was he sounded like Bush when he said we're going to increase the amount of soldiers to go there. We're going to throw up another 30,000. In the summer, there will be 150,000 soldiers in Afghanistan, and still another 100,000 in Iraq. He said the same thing. He said, you know, we're fighting against terrorists, so we won't have another attack, a 911 attack against us. This is a situation that we have to, you know, we have to be strong, and it's about our security and everything. Well, I think two things. First of all, if he wanted to fight terrorism, he wouldn't have a double standard, and he would like arrest people like Posada Carriles, you know, who's the biggest terrorist in the Western